server side, mean we can get the data in a form of a XML language from the server, which we can show it in a front-end application, which is your web browser. So I'm now going to share my screen. Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen. So today let us discuss about this XML, and then we can go to the go through the textbook topics which is there in your curriculum. So just I want to make you understand what is meant by XML first. So XML stands for the Extensible Markup Language. The full form of the XML is like it's Extensible Markup Language. So you are well familiar with the markup language. Markup language is nothing but the language, the tags which helps us to make render our page in a web browser. Markup language example is the HTML. So what is meant by extensible markup language? So XML was designed to store and transport data. So XML is a mode of like a storage, a place where we can have the data in a certain format, which is useful for storing and transporting the data from the server to the client side. So XML was designed to be both human and machine readable. So XML language, it can be understandable by human as well as a machine. So this is, if you can see the example, this is the format how we write XML version as we previously did for XHTML. And here you can see the XML file. We have note. See, XML is always not a predefined tags like HTML. We can have our own tags in which we can give the tag names as meaningful information about the data. So here we have a note in which we have to, from, heading and body. Note is like a letter where we have a to field, from field, heading and body. So this is you can say XML like dot XML as you did for dot HTML. So this is the presentation where I'll be matching these topics with the this tutorial, okay, so that you can better understand the concepts. So extensible markup language, it is developed from HTML as it is a root for a HTML, okay. It's a meta markup language, and we can see here HTML is a markup language. XML is used to define the markup languages. So XML is like a storing and transporting data medium, which is used to define these languages. Means we can have the own markup. Okay, there are no predefined tags like HTML. So markup languages are defined in XML are known as applications, and XML can be written by hand or generated by the computer. So it's useful for data exchange. The main purpose of XML is like we have so many kinds of data exchanges like JSON data. So similarly, XML is one of the data exchange which helps us to get the data from the backend and to show it in a front-end application. So now coming to the syntax of XML. See here, you can see the XML file as a node. So this will be the kind of representation. Let us go through another example. So this is your simple.xml like you did for how do you save a HTML file using a .html. Like that, similarly you will do the .xml. You have some tags like breakfast menu. Within the breakfast menu you have a food. Okay. So this is the description of a food, and this is your first item, and this is your second item. You can see the starting and closing tags here. Food is enclosed in, it has some name, it has some price, it has some description, it has some calories. So this is the entire description about the food. So like this you have n number of representations. Okay, you can have any number of representation like this. So what you will do is like when you display it in XML format, this will be your XML format. This is your style format. Okay, display with XSTL. So what is meant by XSTL? I shall explain you in detail. Okay, So with the styles, we can get this particular XML. So here you can see XML is a software and hardware independent tool for storing and transporting data. So what is the purpose of XML is like XML plays an important role in many IT systems. It means like as I have discussed, like we can have the display of data on a client side. For this reason, it is important for all the software developers to have good understanding of XML. So before we continue to the XML, we should have a knowledge of HTML and JavaScript. This is about the description about the XML. XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. XML is a markup language much like HTML, but like HTML, it will not have predefined tags. So designed to store and transport data. XML was designed to be self-descriptive. So XML is self-descriptive means we can understand it easily by the representation itself. So it is a W3C recommendation. So this is the example which we have discussed. So you can find the difference between XML and HTML. XML and HTML are designed with different goals. XML was designed to carry the data with focus on what the data is, and HTML is used to display the data with focus on how the data looks. Okay, XML tags are not predefined like HTML tags. So these 3 points are very important to understand the difference between HTML and HTML and XML. XML does not use the predefined tags, okay, and XML is extensible. More XML applications will work as expected even if new data is added. So for the existing XML, if you can add new rows like new data, it will not get any problem. Imagine application designed to display the original version of node.xml to from. These are the tags which we can see in node.xml, and then imagine a newer version of node.xml with added date, hour elements and remove heading. So even if you remove the tags and add new tags also, it will not be a problem for us. So this is like how your node looks. Next, XML simplifies the things. It simplifies data sharing, it simplifies data transport, it simplifies platform changes, and it simplifies the data availability. So this is about a brief description about how the XML helps us in a real time. Many computer system contains the data in incompatible formats. Exchanging data between incompatible systems or upgraded um, systems is a time-consuming task for web developers. So large amount of data must be converted, and incompatible data is often lost. So what it means is like XML whatever it stores is in a plain text format. So it is easily understandable, human and machine readable. Hence, it won't take much time tuning for understanding the data and exchanging of large amounts of data between the front end and the back end. And also, it is platform supported like XML stores the data in a XML also makes it easier to expand or upgrade to new operating systems. For example, we have different operating systems like Windows, Linux, Ubuntu, and iOS. So for all kinds of operating systems, we have a easier way to expand or upgrade. Okay, or any new browsers also, we will not lose any data using the XML. So this is about importance of like XML. It is a W3 recommendation. Okay, it has become a W3 recommendation on this date. So now coming back to our PPT, we can see like this we have discussed. Yeah, syntax of XML, levels of syntax. We can well-formed documents conform to basic XML rules. Valid documents are well-formed and also conform to a schema which defines the details of the allowed text. What it means is like, see here, XML syntax rule. The syntax rules of XML are very simple and logical. Here, the XML must have a root element. As for a HTML, we have like HTML as a root element. We must have a root for XML documents. One contains a root element. Child, inside the child you can have a subchild. So this is like how your structure of the XML document appears. So we call the XML prologue, which this is called as a prologue, and this XML prologue is optional, and if it exists, it must come first in the document. Okay. So all the XML elements must have a closing tag. In HTML, some elements work well even with the missing closing tags. As I have said, like XML is not strict like XHTML. It allows your tags to display even if you do not close the tags. Whereas here in XML, it is necessary to have a closing tags. So XML tags are case sensitive. So this you have a difference between a capital and a small letters. You should be very careful about the case sensitive things. So XML elements must be properly nested. Nesting is nothing but keeping your one element inside another element. It should be properly followed. Okay. Like you have opened a B tag, inside the B tag you have an I tag. So here you have closed the B tag initially and then. So this is not a proper nesting. You have to do a proper nesting. That is must in XML. And XML attribute values must be quoted. So here you can see like note, you have a note element. For date you should specify the proper quotations here, otherwise it will not be a proper standard. Okay, so this is the incorrect format. You have to quote the date attribute like this. Now coming to the entity references, some characters have a special meaning in XML. If you place a character like this inside an XML element, it will generate an error because the parser interprets as the start of a new element. For in XML, for every start of a new element, it takes this as a start of a new element. So if you keep it inside the text or somewhere, it interprets as an error. Okay. So, but if you want this kind of notation inside your tags, you can use the entity references like this. Okay. For less than you have this entity, for greater than you have certain entities. So if you want certain properties to be displayed on your on your XML text, you can use these entities. So similarly, as we have HTML comments, we have the XML comments too, and this is the format of the XML comment. And white spaces is preserved in XML. So if you give the white spaces, it will have the white spaces preserved. XML does not truncate the multiple white spaces, whereas HTML truncates the multiple white spaces. XML stores a line as LF. So Windows application stored as a new line as carriage return and line feed. You can see here this for the different operating systems. It has given a new line representations. So well-formed XML. XML documents that conform to the syntax rules above are said to be well-formed XML documents. So the above are the syntax rules which we have discussed. So if all the syntax rules are satisfied, then we can say like XML documents are well-formed XML documents. Like this, well-formed XML documents conform to basic XML rules. So all the rules we have discussed. Okay. Now coming to the XML document structure. So an XML document contains the XML elements. So what is an XML element? An XML element is everything from the element starting tag to the element ending tag. What element starting tag? This less than symbol, it's must that your element is starting here. Okay, it represents that it is a start of your element. You have to properly have a initial tag like starting tag, closing tag. Within the tags you should have a description of your content. So an element can contain, it can have a text, it can have attributes. Attributes means here price, space, you can give some like date or any other attributes, other elements, or a mix of the above. So here you can see the example. This is a bookstore which has the attribute called category, and it is has a attribute property as children, and it should be embedded using this quotations. Okay, and this is the title, author. You have a text here, you have a number here, you have a float here. So different kinds of text, numbers. Okay, properties. So this is like a structure, document structure of a XML. So in this example, about, title, author, year, price have the text content, and book has element content. This is the attribute. Empty XML elements. An element with no content is said to be empty. In XML, you can indicate an empty element like this. For empty element, we can have this structure like this. You can also use self-closing tag like this. Like a BR tag, which is a self-closing tag, you can have an element tag like this. The two forms produce identical results in the XML software. Readers, parsers, browsers. Okay. These empty elements, we can have the attributes for the empty elements. XML naming rules. Now coming to the naming rules. XML elements must follow these naming rules. So you should always carefully remember the naming rules whenever you write an XML document. XML names are case sensitive. XML names must start with a letter or underscore. Okay. Element names cannot start with the letters XML or capital XML, or it's a see. Whenever you write an element names, you should not use the XML kind of notation because it's reserved. Okay. XML names can contain letter, digits, hyphens, underscores, and periods. Element names cannot contain spaces. So any element name should not contain spaces. Here, like between E and M, we should not have any spaces. So best naming practice: create descriptive names like person, first name, last name. If you are describing about a person, have the tags like person, his name, his date of birth, or some kind of any useful meaningful words as an element. Okay. Short and simple names. Book title, not like title of the book, not like too much of content. It should be short and it should be easily understandable. Avoid hyphen, dot, colon. Okay. Non-English letters like this. I mean, like non-English letters like this are perfectly legal in XML, but watch out for problems if your software doesn't support them. So in case if your software doesn't support the non-English, then it will be an issue for us. So you should have the things like this. These are like a best practices. Naming styles. Okay, these are the no naming style defined for XML elements, but here are some commonly used. So all letters lowercase, otherwise all letters uppercase, underscore separation, or it's like a camel case. See here, Pascal case, you can have the two digits as a capital, two letters as a capital letters in each word. So if you choose a naming style, it is good to be consistent. So along an entire in your application from start to end, you can have a consistent naming notations. So XML documents often have a corresponding database. A common practice is used to naming rules of the database for the XML elements. So XML elements are extensible, which we have already discussed. You can add 2 more tags for the existing XML. So XML elements can have the attributes just like HTML. Attributes are designed to contain the data related to the specific element. So we have seen this attributes concept in HTML also. Similar way we have XML attributes also. It must be quoted, this we have discussed. Or like this, you can have this quotation. If the attribute value itself contains a double quotes, you can use a single quotes like in the example. So if all your property or all your attribute is enclosed by the single quotes, and within that if you need any other quotes, you can have this quotes like this. So or you can use the character entities like and LT or something. Have a character entities instead of using the quotes. Okay. XML elements versus attributes. So here, take a look at these examples. We have a person with attribute gender, first name, last name. Okay. Here you have a person with gender, first name, last name. The difference between two, if you can observe, you have an extra item gender here like this. Here you have a property like this. In the first example, gender is an attribute. Okay, this is an attribute if you can see. In the last, gender is an element. Both examples provide the same information, but the representation is different. Okay. So like there are no certain rules like how do you use your attributes. Okay. Here, the following three XML documents contain exactly the same information. Date is an attribute here. It's an element here. So within the date, see date you have written in a single line. This can be expanded in 3 lines: year, month, and day. So these are like a three representations. Avoid XML attributes. Some things to consider when using the attributes are attributes cannot contain multiple values. Okay, means elements can contain multiple values, but attributes should not contain the multiple values. Attributes cannot contain tree structures, but elements can contain a tree structure. Means nested elements is possible, but nested attributes is not possible. Attributes are not easily expandable for future changes. I mean, like elements can be expandable, but attributes are not. So here, note day is equal to 10, month is equal to 01, year is equal to 2008. You have multiple attributes. This is wrong. You should not have a multiple attributes. You can have a multiple elements. Okay, to from. So this is not a proper way of representation. This should be like XML attributes for metadata. Sometimes ID references are assigned to the elements. These ID can be used to identify XML elements in much the same way as the ID attribute in HTML. This example demonstrates. You can see here you have node. It has some ID. Okay. So as in HTML, you can have an ID in XML too. ID references. Okay. This is 501, this is 502. So every node has a certain ID. So if you want to retrieve this particular node with the ID 501, you will get the proper data. So this ID attribute are for identifying different nodes. It is not a part of node itself. So this is not a part of node. It's help like a unique key as you learn in your DBMS database systems. You have a unique key concept. With the help of the key, you can have the retrieval of the particular row or a column, like a kind of concept. So coming to the namespaces, XML namespaces provide a method to avoid element name conflicts. So you have to be careful while writing the names because your one XML may get a conflict with other XML. Let us see how it gets. Name conflicts. In XML, element names are defined by the developer. This often results in a conflict when trying to mix the XML documents from different XML applications. If you try to club like two or more XMLs, if you have a same kind of names, then it can be a conflict. How do you avoid this? You have a table with a TR and with the TDs. This XML carries information about the table. Okay, this is about like a fruits. This has another table which has a name, width and length. Okay, it has TR, TDs. So if these XML fragments are added together, there would be a name conflict. Because this is a table and this is also a table. When you try to club this, you will have a conflict. So both contain a table element, but the elements have the different content and meaning. Here the content is about the fruits and here the content is about something like a different table. But when you try to club it, both are tables, but content is different, but there is a name conflict. So, but the elements have the different, as a user or an XML application will not know how to handle these differences. So, XML application doesn't know like how do you handle. So, solving the name conflict using a prefix. So, name conflicts in XML can be easily avoided by using a name prefix. We can have a prefix like this, H colon table. So H is the prefix for everything. Here F is the prefix. So you have two different tables with prefixes. So in the above example, there is no conflict because two table elements have different names. Now coming to the XML namespaces, XML namespace attribute. Using the prefixes in XML, a namespace for the prefix must be defined. So the namespace can be defined by XML-NS attribute in the starting tag, and the name declaration has a following syntax. So XML-NS colon prefix is equal to whatever the like a link or something, you can give according to the W3C recommendations. Okay, you are assigning colon H namespace for the table. So you have used the H here. Here you are using F namespace. So you have used the F here. In the above example, so XML NS attribute in the first table element gives the H prefix, second F prefix. Okay, so all elements with the same. So if you want to have a global, like in the starting of the element itself, you can have a root like this. Within the root, you can have the namespaces specified here, and you can close the root element. Closing is nothing but a closing tag, not closing tag exactly. It's just closing instead of here. You can have it. For having individually for the different tables, you can have it at the top. So the namespace URI is not used by the parser to look up information. So whatever the parser is there, this namespace is not used by the parser. The purpose of using a URI is to give the namespace a unique name. Okay. However, companies often use a namespace as a pointer to a web page containing the namespace information. So this uniform resource identifier is a string of characters which identifies an internet resource. The most common URI is uniform resource locator URL, which we call it as that we have given like this. So coming to default namespaces, we can have a defining a default namespace for an element saves us from the prefixes in all the child elements. So namespaces in real use. Okay, and now understand the namespaces in real use. STL is a language that can be used to transform the XML document into other formats. So now we are in the topic XSLT. It's a language that can be used to transform the XML documents into other format. The XML below is a document used to transform the XML into HTML. This namespace identifies the XSLT elements inside a HTML document. Okay, this is like a syntax how to use. XSL is like a style sheet. It has some version. Namespace is XSL, and this using this XSL prefix, you have the template. You are matching. You can see here a table which has a row XSL for each. So for each element, select catalog/cd. For is nothing but a loop which we have discussed, like for loop and other loops. While loop like that, we have a for each loop which is iterating through these two tags, title and artist, in this particular CD or catalog. So for each, it has defined the this is like how your XSL looks. So I will show you the output. Okay, when we move to the XSLT concept, I will show you the output. This is just a representation. How do you do it? So here we have discussed about the namespaces concept. Okay. Defining a schema is also done. Namespace attributes. Okay, instances is also done. So this we need to discuss. Okay, let's get back here. So now coming to display of XML. So raw XML files can be viewed in all the major browsers. and don't expect the XML files to be displayed as HTML pages. Okay, this is like how you are viewing the XML files. So you will save this particular file using a .xml, and most browsers will display an XML document with color coded elements. Often a plus or minus to the left of the element can be clicked to expand or collapse the element structure. So viewing an invalid XML. If an erroneous XML file is opened, some browsers will report the error, and some will display it or display it incorrectly. So here you are closing that there is some error. So this is just an example how your XML looks. Okay. Why does XML display like this? XML documents do not carry information about how to display the data. So it is just a way of transporting data from one place to like one server to the client side kind of things. There is no look and feel like HTML. So XML tags are invented by the author of XML document. Browsers do not know if a tag like table describes a HTML table or a dying table. Okay, its purpose is like we can have our own data representation without any predefined tags, okay, which does not have any styling. So without any information about how to display the data, browser can adjust the display of XML as it is. So below is an example of how to use CSS to format an XML document. So we can use an XML like this, cd.catalog. This is an XML which has a CD. You have different number of CDs, okay. You can either add the CDs more or remove it. So for this particular CD, you have defined a style like this. This is the CSS which you have defined for the this particular XML. So the result is a CD catalog formatted with a CSS file. Let us see when you club both the files. So this is the thing. You can see here. This is your CD. These are your different CD elements for which you have given the CD catalog.css. So how do you, like HTML, you have embedded the CSS file using a link attribute. So how do you do it in the XML? This is the way how do you embed the CSS into your XML. XML style sheet type href. So with the help of this particular tag, you can have the CSS applied to your XML file. So formatting XML with CSS is not recommended. Use JavaScript or XSLT instead. So let us discuss about the XSLT, okay? So that it is like a, not a recommended practice to have like this. So let us do it using the XSLT. With XSLT, you can transform an XML document into a HTML. So displaying XML with the XSLT, extensible style sheet language transformations, is a recommended style sheet language for the XML. So XSLT is far more sophisticated than CSS. With XSLT, you can add or remove the elements and attributes to or from the output file. You can also rearrange and sort the elements, perform tests, and make decisions about which element to hide and display, and lot more. Like you do in a CSS and JavaScript, like you can have the elements hiding display based on the logic. Similarly, you can have it done using the XSLT. So it uses XPath to find information in an XML document. So let us see the example here. So this is your one of the tag breakfast menu, which is nothing but your element. in which you have the different instances. Like for foot, you have this is the entire element of first item, second item, third item, and all. Okay, use XSLT to transform the XML into HTML before it is displayed in a browser. So this is how you create an XML namespace. Okay, this is how do you create your XML namespace using this colon. XML NS is a keyword. Okay, from the W3C recommendation, you should have a colon like this, and you should specify the XSL. XSL, this version you have to follow. Like these two are the standard lines, like you use a doc type. So you should follow this as per the W3C recommendations. Okay, this is how do you write your XML namespace. Okay, this is a URL, uniform resource allocator, which is from a W3C standard. Okay, you have a style. This is a inline style. You have something like for each select breakfast menu slash food. So within the breakfast menu, you have the items like food items, right? So you are selecting this food. This is your name. So this will be like a representation output. Okay, this is your first step. See, this is your entire body element in which you have a first div. What is the style here? Background color teal, color white, padding 4 pixels. So let us see here where you have written. You have written an inline style background. See, this is your style which has been applied to the here, right? For the span, you have font weight bold, XSL, value of select name. So what is your name here? You can see now in food you have a, for every food item you have a name like Belgian waffles. So here you can see the name, two of our Belgian waffles. See, for the span you have given a font weight as bold, which you can see here. So in this way, value of selector. For breakfast menu food, what is your for each? You are doing for each means you are iterating every food item in the breakfast menu. Okay. For the first name nothing but your this name. First item, second item, and all. So for every title you got this particular color. For every span you have a this style applied. Okay. You can see here this is a normal font and this is an italic font. So this is where you have written font style is equal to for description price how the style should be. Okay, for name you have given this style. For value of select price you are giving this style. For description you have given italic. Okay, this is a way how do you write your italic. So these are the topics which we have already discussed. Okay, we shall discuss it. let us go through the XML DTD. XML document with a correct syntax is called as a well-formed. An XML document validated against a DTD is both well-formed and valid. So for like a HTML document type definition, so what is meant by well-formed? We have discussed, right? We have to follow all the proper syntax rules. Then we can say like XML is a well-formed. So it is well-formed and valid. How it is? It is validated against a DTD. So valid XML documents, you should have a DTD like this. A valid XML document is a well-formed XML document which also conforms to the rules of DTD. Okay, this is the doc type node system. You have to specify like this. And the doc type declaration in the example above is a reference to the external DTD. If you are taking an external doc type, this is the representation, okay, and the content of the file is shown in the paragraph below. XML DTD, the purpose of DTD is to define the structure of XML document. It defines the structure with a list of legal elements, okay. So this is how your DTD document type declaration for a note. The DTD above is interpreted like this. Doc type node defines a root element of the document is the note. So this is your root element, okay. Element node defines a node element must contain elements to from heading body. Mean your element should have, node should have these tags, okay. To defines element to be a type of PC data, and PC data is nothing but the parsable text data, okay. The browser should able to parsable format data, okay. So the remaining elements are like can be parsed by the browser. Next, entity declaration. Doc type declaration can also be used to define the special character strings used in the document. So you will have an encoding format which you always follow, and this has some see here. You can see in a document type declaration for the entity declaration. Entities means you have seen like and LT for less than and GT for greater than. Okay, like that. For NBSP, for this entity, you have certain notation like this. So these are the entities. For copyright, you have certain. For writer, you have this entity. Okay. See here, this is the way like XML file does not appear to have a style information associated with it. The document tree, it is shown here like this. When you click on it, this is your document structure. Output of the XML. To, from, heading, body, footer, writer, colon, Donald Duck, dot, copyright. So how did you do this actually? Using this representation entity, you have whenever you write copy, it should have a copyright colon W3 schools. Here you have written copyright, then it came as like this output. And copyright, it took like copyright W3 schools. And writer, it took it as writer colon Donald Duck. So these are like entities which you defined it, predefined it. So when you write only the shortcut words, this thing, you can have the complete representation. So entity has a 3 parts: ampersand, entity name, semicolon. I think you can go through this, how to use the DTD schema and all, okay? When to use and when not to use the DTD schemas. This is about a detailed description which you can go to. Now coming to the XML schema. XML schema describes the structure of XML document like a DTD. We have a document structure, we have this XML schema. XML document with a correct syntax is called well-formed. So well-formed means it will have a proper syntax. So validated against XML schema, a document validated against XML schema is both well-formed and valid. XML based DTD, you can have the namespace like this XS because if you have like same names, you can have the name space conflict resolved using this prefixes. Okay, defines the element node. The node is of a complex type. Here it is complex type. Makes a sequence of elements. Element 2 is of type string. So type is like access colon string. It is of type string. Okay, these are all. This is a nested element. You can see this is your child element. Okay. The schema above is interpreted like this. XML schemas are more powerful than the document type definitions. So XML schemas are written in XML, extensible to editions, support the data types. So here in XML schemas, we will write types, what type of data the name is and all. So XML schemas, why do we use schema? With the XML schema, your XML files can carry a description of its own format, and with XML schema, independent groups of people can agree on a standard for interchanging the data. And XML schema, you can verify the data. So you can just go through the additional information. Okay, XML schemas support data types. Schemas use XML syntax. So we have discussed about the CSS cascading style sheets, XSLT, document entities, entity syntax, and the C data character. Next, coming to the document type definitions, tags, attributes, entities we have discussed. Specify the order and nesting of tags. The tags should be properly nested. Okay, and general syntax. Next, declaring the elements. Declaring the elements you have seen, right? How do you declare entities? Okay, PC data we have seen, alternate tags. How do you declare an attribute? Attribute the element space the attribute name is equal to. Yeah, declaring entities also we have seen here. Entities declaration. This is how do you declare an element. Entities are nothing but and LT kind of representations. Okay. So internal and external DT. External data we have seen here. So this is like a external DT. How do you do it? This is your DTD. You have included it using the node.dtd here. Otherwise, you can have the same thing inside your thing, which is an internal, like this. This is an example of internal, which can have the entity, okay, inside it. Namespaces we have discussed, schemas we have discussed, schema fundamentals, defining a schema. How do you define a schema? Here you have seen. This is how do you declare a schema. Instance. Yeah, for data types also you can see here how you have specified the data types. Okay. So this is a simple and complex types which we can see here. We have a complex type example here. Within a complex type, we can have the sequence like this. You can have this representation as simple types based on the content. Okay. So validating instances of schemas, you can have the validation of the schemas mean, if you want to check whether the schema is well formed and valid, you can have it using online or XML support libraries include validations like this, Apache and so on, and some IDs. Okay, integrated development environments like Eclipse and all, you can have this done. Certain IDs will use the schemas to provide support for XML file creation like that. In particular IDs like Notepad or Eclipse, you can have a default structure of the XML. Displaying raw XML documents. Plain XML documents are generally displayed literally by the browsers. Firefox notes that there is no style information. So we can have a general representation on your browser. So XML with CSS, this we have discussed, and it is not a recommended practice to use the style sheet CSS. Better use XSLT. Okay. XSLT style sheets. Here you can see this we have discussed. Family of specifications for transforming XML to the other documents like HTML kind of things. So here you can see like XSLT specifies how to transform the documents. XPath specifies how to select the parts of a document and compute values. XSLFO specifies the target XML describing the printed page. Okay. So I think we are running out of time. So for today's session, let us close with the this thing 20-second slide. So tomorrow's session I will describe about the XPath and all the remaining topics. Okay. So if you have any doubts, you can just ping me.